So far, we've only worked with a single screen in our applications. That certainly isn't real world. You can't make a very interesting application with a single screen. Well, unless you're pretty clever in terms of making it dynamic. But usually, you want to have multiple screens in an application. So in this lesson, we're going to show you how to do that. We're starting with our basic storyboard that we worked with in the last lesson, and you'll note that it's got a bunch of labels on it that are positioned with constraints. We'll be ignoring those for now, and what we want to do is we want to add another view controller to our storyboard. It's actually the top object in the object inspector. And I'll drag him into the environment. And we'll position these so we can see both of them. And I'll change the size of this one so we can see it both a little bit better. And line them up nicely. The lining up doesn't really make a difference, just neatens up your design environment. Okay, so now I've got this second form, and we're going to put a label on him so we know that he's the second form. We won't worry too much about constraints and centering and all that at this point. Okay, so now, how do we get that second form to be shown? Well, I'm going to add a button to our first main view controller. We'll just title that Go. And just as a reminder, we'll go into our editor and reset the suggested constraints. And now we should have a constraint on the Go that will center him. Okay. So I have a button. And now you probably think, oh, well, you're going to have to write some code to do this. And indeed, you can do it in code, but you can also do it right on the storyboard yourself. So if I select that button, hold the Control key down, and drag over to the second view controller, it'll create something called an action segue. And I want to present this second view controller modally, meaning that I want to present it as a separate form that has to be closed or dealt with before the first form will be shown again. And it will create this little object called a segue. And we'll see later on where we'll use the identifier for the segue and how to pass data on a segue. But for now, we're just going to show you how to deal with going to a form and how to get back. So we're going to give this a run. And when we tap on the Go button, we see our second form, which is great. But of course, we have no way to get back. Swiping doesn't work. We're stuck. So we'd like to not be stuck. In order to get back, I could create another segue, but then I would start actually creating things on the stack in multiple copies. What I really just want to do is effectively close this second view controller and go back to the original first. I don't want to recreate a new first and go to that. So in this case, I actually do have to write a little bit of code. So if I go to the view controller, I have an unwind action. And all I need is the function. It doesn't actually have to do anything. In fact, we'll see later on where we might want to do something in this unwind. But all I really need is the function. So I've added the function into my view controller. And now when I go back to the storyboard, I can add a button to my second view controller. And give it a little go back label. And now I select that button. Again, hold Control down and drag to the exit. And it will give me an action segue, and I can choose that unwind action method that I created. Now, if you forget to create that function, you'll probably get really frustrated in attempting to drag something to the exit. Let me show you what I mean. I can select this guy and drag him over all day, and I'm not going to find any kind of exit for him to go to. But I do have an exit on this form with a function. So I'm good with that. And now let's give this a run. And I go to my second form, and then I can go back. So that's just a real short idea of how we can work with multiple view controllers in a storyboard. And of course, we can add as many as we like, and we can have buttons that would actually go to different view controllers from a single form, perhaps a little switchboard from our main form that goes into different other view controllers. And we can go back and forth amongst the view controllers. Later on, we're going to see how to pass data and how to work with controlling if we want to leave a view controller. For instance, if there's a validation error, we may not want to go back or go forward. We may need more entries from the user. Or we may want to determine which view controller we go to based on certain user actions. So we're going to talk about those details later when we get a little bit more deeply into some of the code and some of the other controls. So you have that to look forward to.